25 years in the music industry, a touring artist who turned into a thought leader. Erin, hello.
Hi, this is exciting. The average person thinks that music just happens. They see big shows, they see Taylor Swift tours. They're like, great, that looks awesome. They don't think of as an industry. A healthy, thriving music scene in your city equals
Economy.
Exactly. We are not a priority. If our industry was more of a priority, we would be solving economic problems.
What advice would you give to a 20-year-old who wants to change the industry?
Networking. And under no circumstances believe that you're better than anybody else.
Was there ever a moment you wanted to walk away from it all? In a world where content is king, the throne is overcrowded. Part of the Thought Leadership Uncovered, which is part of the executive positioning, we're hosting Erin, who's a touring artist who turned into a thought leader and a leader. 25 years in the music industry. Erin, hello.
Hi.
How are we?
I'm good. This is exciting. Thanks for having me.
Is it a good day?
It is a difficult day in my professional life, but it is, every day is a great day to be on this side of the grass.
Exactly. And how is it? So I'm gonna give you the time to tell us a bit about, so from a touring artist to a leader and 25 years in the industry, you have lots of stories to tell.
Mm-hmm. Should I start at the beginning?
Of course.
It's nice to be referred to as an artist. It doesn't happen very much anymore. But I started out as when I was 5 years old, I had a dream that I was a guitar player. And I was so certain when I woke up that I was obsessed with learning how to play the guitar from that point on. And I begged my parents to buy me a guitar. And finally my mom caved and she took me to this store called Drum World to buy me a guitar. In Toronto, and we picked out a very inexpensive Degas guitar. I remember it like it was yesterday.
You still have it?
No, but I had it for a very long time. I actually stripped the top of it, and I have a twin sister. We're fraternal. She's very arty and creative, and she painted these beautiful flowers. And then when I backpacked across Europe many years later, I took it as my guitar, and I busked in Florence and all these fun things. But
I think we're going to talk about that, backpacking across Europe.
So when I was little, I was really determined I was just convinced I was a guitar player and I just hadn't had access to the instrument yet. So I started taking lessons and from that, I started writing songs. And from that, I started performing. I was always a very outgoing, that's a diplomatic word. My parents would probably use another word, kid. And I was always in the plays at school and so on. So eventually it became, I studied theater actually in university. I went to Concordia University and my plan was to be an actor and move back to Toronto and make my career in theater. And that didn't really quite work out. So while I was bartending, trying to make a living, I lived in Sudbury for about 13 years. And during that time, I really started to work harder at writing songs. And I ended up getting a regular gig at a local bar. And I played every Sunday night. And people loved it. And so I had a great time doing it. And I worked more and more on my writing and eventually got bigger and bigger gigs, and there are lots of other moments, but ultimately chose to pursue a full-time career as a musician.
Wow. Yeah. That's so heavy. So there's the backpacking in Europe part, there's the bartending part, there's the acting part, and wow.
But then what happened was when a full-time musician, I started my own record label. I had a website, so was very DIY. I did everything myself. And in 1994, I remember I coded my own website at the dawn of the internet.
Wow.
I was like, how hard can it be? Other people have websites. So I figured it out. And it was back when it took 3 days to upload an MP3. And
100%.
You pressed the wrong button and you lost your whole website. That happened a couple of times. I had to start again. But I started distributing my music myself. I recorded a bunch of probably, 3 or 4 significant recording projects over the course of my career. But in the early days, I had cassettes, and then I moved to CDs, and I would sell them wherever I went. And I was starting to play more and more festivals and more significant shows.
That was
early 90s, mid 90s.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
So how did you see the whole? Because I remember, it's interesting that you started saying that it's nice to be referred to as an artist nowadays. How do you see the evolution throughout the years of the industry?
Well, I mean, it's dramatic, right? And some things also never change. I mean, I think live music, it's why during COVID it was so visceral for everyone. We really were able to realize how much we missed gathering, and especially those of us who love music missed the experience of being in a live music concert. But it's changed. I mean, technology has changed the business. Lots of factors. We could break it down, but ultimately, I think that streaming has and access to recorded music has created an incredible opportunity for live performance. In theory, audiences are more exposed to a wider range of artists. You don't need to be famous to be streamed in your ears. And if my kids are any example, my kids have hundreds of playlists with thousands of songs, artists they would never have heard of, and are now curious to see live or know about, which is another reason, and I don't forget to talk about this, but music tourism in terms of people traveling to see shows.
Yeah.
That is one way that live music has changed. People now get on airplanes to go and see concerts all the time.
The whole hype about cool. Now, I think for the past couple of years, all my friends and everyone, the Coldplay rush, that's been great. I think it turned into more an experience rather than, okay, so there's a music part and there's the whole choreography of, technology. And then, what do you think about it? Do you think does it reduce the focus on the music itself?
The big show versus the more sort of stripped down. No, look, I've seen Springsteen. Who have I seen lately? I've seen tons of shows. Bruce Springsteen, very stripped down, because that's the essence of his show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Hozier the other night here at our wonderful Ottawa Blues Festival.
Nice.
Very cinematic projection, gorgeous, not necessarily over the top technology, but when I saw the wonderful American artist that only had one date last summer at Festival d'Été, and I took my, oh my gosh, what is his name? Oh, I'm just a Festival d'Été, Quebec City. He has lots of tattoos and gold teeth. Post Malone. Oh my God.
Post Malone, yeah.
Sorry. Post Malone at Festival d'Été with 100,000 other people on the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City. An incredible show. Also very cinematic, incredible projections. Like the technology for big outdoor shows especially has evolved to a place where it is more than you absorbing the songs of the artists that you love. Look at Coldplay last week in Toronto with everyone wearing the same wristbands like Taylor Swift did. And so we're having technology's brought us together through these experiences. For sure, it's different, it's heightened, it's next level. But there is something to be said for the Springsteen approach, which is, there wasn't even four walls. I mean, he stood on a stage and you could see behind him and beside him. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think the core experience though is the same, and it's the one fan standing in a room or on a field listening to that one artist that they.
Because I'll tell
love.
you why I'm asking this, because I've seen something which is quite interesting the past couple of days. So back in the Middle East, there was one of the artists. He's a Lebanese artist. He was like in the middle of I would say not so favorable situation. He was part of some kind of a party, and then there were like some clashes, and he was away of the highlights or away from his music for the past, I would say, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then so what they would say that all the other artists, they were using his absence to get their music moving, and then all of a sudden, so his stuff his stuff got cleared, and then he's up back to the public. He had like a small studio with he bought probably a couple of music from junior producers or junior writers, and then the guy with four, like in a room smaller than this, no productions, with probably mobile phones, produced 4 clips which smashed every single top list that you can ever imagine.
Wow.
And they were like, I got goosebumps even thinking about it. So because it tells you that music is not about the way I see it. when I now, like, call me silly, but sometimes when I'm, let's say, if I want to post a reel about my family, about my wife, about something, there's a certain words or there's a certain, like, a paragraph or like a part of a song which speaks right into your soul. And you can see, like, even if you don't have the official clip, you can see your life with this song, with the certain images and certain things. I believe that's the whole point of music, like.
Yeah, I think that's really beautifully said. And of course, we can have those experiences in a tiny, dark live music venue. We could have it in a field with 100,000 people. I mean, that's why the work that we do at the organization I run, I think, is so important. I mean, we as a society here in Canada have completely undervalued the arts writ large. And in particular, I believe live music. I mean, it was really COVID that shone this huge spotlight and that on the situation. Well, what we were poised to lose hundreds of live music spaces. And even though before COVID, my one job was to tell government and others why these spaces were so important for artists. And it took a global pandemic to get people's real attention. And now today it's become very hard again, unfortunately, to hold that attention. But the idea of nurturing these spaces to enable those artists to sing those songs for us, to change our lives collectively and collaboratively is so powerful, and it has so much potential. And if we could just recognize and embrace and value that experience, because it intersects with so many parts of our lives that seem to matter more, or we're easy at prioritizing. It's very interesting, but if you break it down, the musical experience and that the essence of the feeling that you have listening to that artist through this low tech live stream or whatever recording, and really think about what is happening, there is just so much power in that idea. And I believe that's why I do the work today, is because that power is something that we need to value, recognize, and leverage for impact.
That's actually spot on and beautifully said. On this note, since we mentioned COVID, I know that there's a really cool story about that. I remember, the notes, something about turning during COVID your living room into what?
Well, so my best friend in the whole world is a wonderful Ottawa musician, and more of an entertainer, really. He's been performing in Ottawa for decades, and he makes his living from music and mostly. And when COVID hit, it wasn't like his life was playing shows 3-4 times a week, right? He's not a guy who tours outside of the market. He doesn't sell CDs. He doesn't sell T-shirts. His money is made by sitting in a room with an audience. And so when that went away, he was very frightened. And we watched the live stream phenomenon, the house concert online phenomenon, grow at the very early days of COVID. And I said, well, we can try this too. Why don't we try it and see how it goes? And because he's so popular in this market, and because everyone was at home, all he had to do was advertise it talk about it on social media, and people started showing up.
And everyone was on social media at that time.
Right. And so we started doing it 2 nights a week. And then the most incredible thing happened. So it was great. And people would send him money.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they would just e-transfer him. This is how artists were doing it, right? They put their email address on their guitar or piano or somewhere on the screen, and you could send money, like a payment or a tip or whatever. And people did that for him, and it was not insignificant. And so he was like, oh my God, I can pay rent. I can buy groceries. This is fantastic. And then one of his fans who would show up to the show every time said, he came up with the idea of fundraising he said, could we raise money for this charity? I'm trying to help them. And so that one show was a fundraiser for this particular charity. And it was so successful that he sort of said, we should do fundraisers every show. Wow. And very quickly, the show became about raising money for small local charities in Ottawa. And by the end, for the course of COVID, we did 86 shows.
Wow.
And we raised $205,000.
Oh my God.
And he got paid.
That's it kind of similar things makes you feel that really music can change the world, I would say. it changed his life. It changed other people's lives. So on that note, like, because I want to go back to the question of so the evolution. Was there any specific time where you felt, or any specific event throughout those years, which really made the shift in music?
Do you mean the COVID years or just like my career generally?
Yeah, between your career and, like, let's say, because there's your evolution along with the music industry, even COVID being one of them. So, is there anything, let's say, if you want to go back in the years and think, wow, really, that was a good year?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure that I'd be able to point to one thing. I mean, I would point, I think for me, if I don't know if we're talking about like career triumphs, but during COVID, when the federal government decided to include $70 million in that, I think it was a 2022 federal budget, or it said for live music venues was in the federal budget. Those two words side by side, money expressly for live music venues. That was a great day because it was the culmination of my entire career's effort trying to help people understand what the ecosystem is, why it matters to artists and fans, and how fundamental it is to our community and communities.
And by the way, it takes a bold government to do that, to do that and say that, because I wouldn't say that, because I've been in different countries in different parts of the world. Yes, everyone appreciates music, but to be that bold about it, I think this is really something.
Sure, I agree, and it's good to be reminded of that perspective. I mean, Canada is, and hopefully remains, a wonderful place to be able to create and disseminate art. Although there are always challenges, and that's why people like me exist, so that we can have those conversations on behalf of the artists and the creators. But the reality is that if you lost part of the ecosystem during COVID, it would cost way more for governments to rebuild that. And I don't mean here's money to go build a music venue. The indirect and direct spending that occurs when someone goes to a concert, regardless of size, is measurable. We have measured it. It is not insignificant. Music tourism is continuing to grow globally, 10% per year, hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on music tourism. And one of our arguments, and I believe this fundamentally, is that like people have money to hop on a plane and fly to a concert. We need to make sure they're spending it in Canada. If we're going to have any kind of live music market here, we need to invest in the early rungs of our venue ladder, in the breadth and depth of the ecosystem, to make sure we have a healthy, thriving pipeline to help our artists develop their careers and bring in artists from other places so that fans can engage that way. It's an economic success. It's a cultural imperative. And socially, it has profound impacts on human beings. Like, there are no reasons not to do it. And it's very inexpensive from a funding perspective.
On this note, by the way, I'm very happy to hear that about music, because while thank God, music is growing, and especially in Canada, and like with you guys, with the leadership you guys are doing, it's turning great. In some other areas where other different, paintings, for example, I know that a friend of mine, he has a gallery of art here in Ottawa, and like he's saying that the whole industry is decreasing year after year after year, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, and that's because sales are going down generally, or yeah. I mean, certainly, I would not want to paint an overly rosy picture of everyone in live music right now. It is much harder for smaller companies to compete. It's harder for smaller companies to make ends meet. The cost of doing business, the cost of staff, the exodus of skilled labor during COVID to different sectors like film and television. We're still grappling with all of that. Permanent changes in fan and consumer behavior. All of these things have a much more direct impact on smaller companies and organizations. So we have many challenges in the sector, but that's what it speaks to why the health and sustainability and future viability of our industry is so important, because we need the pipeline and the ecosystem to be healthy and robust.
Okay, this is I'll shift towards another question. So, what do you think? Well, what do most people misunderstand about being a music advocate?
About being a music advocate. Okay, it's such a great question. Like, we could just talk about this. I think, most people I would say the average person, whether they might be a music fan, but maybe not a rabid music fan, thinks that music is just easy. Like it just happens, right? It's one of those industries they don't think of as an industry. They don't think of music as an ecosystem. People don't understand the layers upon layers, the complexity, the intrinsic and intricate relationships between a live music venue and a supplier and an artist, etc. They see big shows, they see Taylor Swift tours, and they're like, great, well, that looks awesome. But so my work, and actually it's more like almost 35 years, I think, these days.
Wow.
I should update whatever bio you were reading. Over the course of my entire career, it's clear that, music is important to people, but it is not as important from a taxpayer's perspective as healthcare, education, clean water. So
roads.
Exactly. And we're going to face this imminently in this country again. There will be a change, and there is an evolving change in thinking around government priorities, and we will be caught in that net as always. But it's really, if I could say it in a sentence to a Canadian who asks, like, what do you really do? What I do is try to connect the dots for people to understand the intrinsic value as it relates to their quality of life. So quality of life might mean economic success, prosperity, and cultural and social success, however you define it. Music, and whether you're a fan and you buy tickets or not, a healthy, thriving music scene in your city equals indirectly
economy.
Exactly. And a cool place to live. So a great music scene here in Ottawa, which is growing in leaps and bounds, music scene here. It's so impressive what's happening. It's going to mean more people want to come and live in this city, not just visit, but live here. Industries will build their headquarters here
100%.
or return to headquarters, depending on who you ask. And the spillover indirect benefits of healthy live music scene really have a material impact on everybody who lives or works or plays in any given city.
I'll tell you on this note, by the way, I fully agree with you on this note, because so we've been here since November, and we're loving it, and it feels like it's nice to feel that every single week you have something, like you don't need to like go somewhere else, go to a different city or somewhere else. There's events happening, there's music, music festivals, there's jazz festival there, so it kind of feels that it's happening, things are happening around us.
New venues.
Exactly.
Hard Rock has 4 live performance spaces. The new Live Nation venue, History. We've got tons of beautiful, different sized independent venues in the city, all of whom bring different types of artists to town. And that is the ecosystem that I'm talking about. And Ottawa is an example. Sure, I run a national association, but I live here, so I'm intimately familiar with the scene here, more so than any other Canadian city, really. But I can say that the business community, the philanthropic community, the political community here have really deepened their understanding of why it matters to tourism.
100%.
Especially. And so Ottawa is a great example of a city that is finally starting to truly leverage its live music economy. And that looks like, in practical terms, live music is sitting at policy tables where it never has been before.
Exactly.
Right? It's being written into downtown action plans post-COVID and so on. Entertainment, live music, sports to a certain extent. People, I think, fully recognize, or more so than ever, recognize the power and potential of the role that we play in city building and city building sustainability.
And growing,
if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. On this note, so, you've seen live music in Canada rise, fall, and go back up. So, and fight back in some places. What is the moment basically that almost broke you, but didn't?
Well, that's hands down. It's COVID. I had grown humans calling me on the phone, weeping, men weeping, saying they were going to lose their house and they were going to take their own lives. They couldn't handle the stress. And what were we going to do about it? And there's like me and my team of 3, realizing what was on the line. It was incredibly stressful I remember before I was really adjusted to working at home, I'd sit cross-legged on my bed upstairs and I'd be like, oh, God, I don't feel well. What's wrong with me? And I realized I hadn't had a sip of water or bite to eat for 6 hours. And I would text my kids who were at home online learning, both of them in school at the time, to bring me like toast and water. I mean, it was, when I look back, you know, and I'm still very, very much affected by that time, like 100%. And that's a different podcast possibly, but it's true for those of us who led in the hardest hit sectors, tourism, travel, hospitality, live events. It was incredibly traumatic. And that was the hardest experience of my life, and also the most deeply satisfying. And someone once used an expression like gears. We all have gears, and COVID taught me that I had a gear I didn't know I had. Exactly. And I went into that gear, and I stayed in that gear for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, thank you for sharing that. And I think all of us, you know, the whole thing, you know, imagine every single industry in every single country in every single part of the world getting affected. Because I used to travel, for example, you know, like every 2 weeks. And I never even thought, you know, growing up, that there's going to be one day in the world where every single plane is going to be stationed down on the ground and no one can do anything. That's it. Done. And I think, you know, I see it in some places, even right now, especially in Ottawa, because I wasn't here back in COVID, but they did tell me that specifically Ottawa during COVID, it wasn't an easy time. It was a hard time for the city, in a sense.
Yeah.
But right now, I think the comeback is quite fulfilling, I would say.
Yeah, I think that downtown has some challenges that are being addressed by the local business community and the city itself. And there's a really strong effort right now to look at those challenges and unpack them and create strategies to address them and really evolve this city's downtown core into something different.
Perfect.
And I think that's happening. I think it's great. I mean, look, I hate dwelling on COVID. I feel like I've already said COVID more in the last 20 minutes than I have in the last 2 years. So I apologize, because there's so much more, you know, to talk about. But it was, as a leader, it was just, I mean, and to galvanize a community around a message, that 70 million in the budget I was talking about came as a result of a campaign that we ran called #ForTheLoveOfLive.
Wow.
And the idea for that came from the amazing woman, Lisa Zabitnu, who runs the Bronson Music Theater and also the Phoenix Concert Theater in Toronto. And she's a great example of an independent venue person who was, you know, ravaged by COVID, and it was just awful. And she almost didn't make it. And she has, thank God, because she's incredible. Live music hero to many. But we were thinking about a campaign. We didn't know what to call it. She suggested that name. And so we launched this campaign. And ultimately, we saw 45,000 letters from Canadians and industry sent to government. We had paper posters in every city in the country. We had all of our venue members display on their marquees our branding. And we had a social media campaign that is still going to this day, but by the time the budget rolled around, had 60 million impressions. It was remarkable. It was like everything. And remember, like I was hired by the founding, we didn't talk about this, so you don't need to remember, you're going to learn it right now. I was hired by the founding board of the Canadian Live Music Association to create this association. I didn't found it. I was hired by them to help them administratively and operationally figure out what kind of levers and knobs we needed to be able to have conversations about live music. And so we were still, before COVID at the beginning, like we were only founded in 2014. So we were still early, we were still in startup mode, and we were still getting new members and talking about the power of working together. And COVID, we walked through the door that COVID opened as a community, and we all sort of stared at each other and went, oh my God, if we ever needed each other, now is the time. And it taught a very proprietary, territorial, competitive industry that by working together, they could achieve their common goals. And that is at the heart of the work that we do today.
Wow. I think this is a very strong message, because, you know, you said it spot on. There are some industries where the competition is really fierce and really, it's just like, what do you call it? Like, because I know the term in French, it's like when you're breaking bones and breaking teeth against each other, and then to work together into something, this is really awesome. Yeah. I'll ask you on this note on the question. So If you, if you could pass one law tomorrow and change the industry, what would that be?
One law. I think I have to go to funding for, funding is not the be all and end all. For nonprofits, it is. I'm not going to make this suggestion just because I think that, we need funding to close a gap. But I like to talk about funding because funding exists because of policy, and what policy is are sort of words that say this is important and this is what we think this is important, and here's how we're going to protect this concept, and we're going to connect it to all these other concepts. And so we have a policy to make sure that this one idea is centered in thought. In live music, we have almost no policy to incentivize things like growth.
Oh, wow.
Right? If you're a live music venue today, you cannot apply for a grant to say, have more emerging artists on your stage. If you're a nonprofit festival, you can. So the commercial side of the industry has been, and again, it's another reason why we exist. Commercial side of the industry has been sort of summarily left off the agenda of growing our creative industries and our music industry generally. There are other commercial entities at the table. Independent record labels, for example, can apply for funding, but independent concert promoters and venues cannot. So what I would change is I would have policy that identifies the key essential ingredients to a healthy live music ecosystem. And that policy would be reflected in funding programs aimed at incentivizing. I always say incentivizing growth. Like, I don't think bigger is better. But I do think investing in, especially the early rungs of our venue ladder, are essential for all the things I've already talked about, but especially for emerging artists who are trying to develop careers. Artists earn the vast majority of their revenue from live performance.
Exactly.
And they need places to
express
and incubate.
Yeah.
Create.
On this, funny that you mentioned the budget. Let's say you had one wish and then you were granted. Let's say you were handed $100 million to rebuild Canada's live music scene from the scratch. What would be your first move?
My first move would be to get municipal governments and provincial governments around a table together and talk about how and why live music matters to successful communities. Because, right, as I've said, I mean, we have major challenges as a nation. We are a blip on a budget today, and we are not a priority. I believe that if our industry was more of a priority, we would be solving problems, especially economic ones. So if I could start from the very beginning, I would make sure that every government, every elected official, every bureaucrat, every policymaker understood and believed that the live music ecosystem was as critical as their healthcare and their education ecosystems and so on.
It's culture. It's
right. But it's not negotiable. It's not a luxury. It's not, well, we have budget cuts, so you're going to go. It is treated equally, because then we are creating we are creating so many opportunities that are to me so very obvious, but that are impossible for people to prioritize today. We wouldn't be, we're sitting on Bank Street in Ottawa, where the beautiful Barrymore's languishes in disrepair as it has for years now. I mean, there are beautiful venues and spaces all over this country. And I'm not suggesting that Barrymore's isn't thriving today because there's no policy that could prevent that. I'm suggesting that if there was policy, we would revere these spaces, and we would make sure that we were incentivizing their long-term sustainability, because we understood how intrinsic whatever happened in those venues was to our quality of life.
100%. I'll take a shift now towards something which is more on the emotional side, I would say. So, is there anything that does being a mom change the way you lead or change your leadership style overall?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's such a nice question. I think being female, being a mom, I mean, there's a lot wrapped up in all of that. Also, it's been a long time since I haven't been a mom, and even longer. I mean, I've always been a girl, so hard to walk in anybody else's shoes. But yeah, I mean, becoming a parent taught me a bunch of things, as you are experiencing yourself
Well,
now.
3 weeks in.
Yeah, what a beautiful road ahead. Sure, it's, all the obvious things like patience and, communication skills. When you really need someone to understand something, you may take a different approach. Tolerance, etc., being open to other perspectives and opinions, and so on. But yeah, I mean, also priorities. And I'm really bad at this, especially right now. But family comes first always. And it's still hard for me to remember that sometimes because our office has such a huge mandate and such a small team and such a small budget.
Wow.
So it's really hard. But you're, as a parent, like your kids matter more than anything. And that helps keep you grounded.
100%. If you want to look back 20 years, let's say from now, what is the legacy you'd hope to leave behind?
Well, I don't feel very humble answering this question.
Well, all yours.
I think, honestly, I think that, and again, I'll use Ottawa as an example. Today, the business community here, where you and I met at a business community event,
Exactly.
understands why live music matters and are actively working to integrate it into their future plans. That is a major accomplishment. Because when the business community, they might be music fans, but they're not people who work in music in any way, but they are people who turn the wheels of this town.
100%.
When they understand why a thriving live music ecosystem matters, as well as all the policymakers I've been talking about, then we have fundamental change. And that change looks like an awareness, a respect, a passion for, and a commitment to live music businesses and organizations, just like we would with Main Street shops and retail and tech and big business. And like we have a home. Live music owners and operators and promoters and venues and agents and everyone else who works in that space, like they are part of a broader business community.
100%.
And I think that's happening. We have more and more cities across the country with music city strategies. Here in Ottawa, we have a new nightlife office and a commissioner where live music is very central to that work. And this is not this is new.
Exactly.
Cities around the world have led this, and Canada was a late adopter, and Ottawa certainly, like on the Canadian spectrum, is maybe a little bit late. A lot of cities are not doing this work, so they're not the last. But this, I believe that Music Cities work, or whatever you want to call it, is a gateway to truly leveraging the potential of what the sector brings to music fans, to artists, and the broader community. So that would be an incredible thing if people look back and looked at the Canadian Live Music Association and my leadership and said, we understand why live music matters more today.
Wow. I think this is awesome. What is the lie you told yourself the most during your career?
The lie?
Yeah. That's a very unconventional question.
Gosh.
I'll make it easier for you. I'll answer it from my side.
Okay.
So for me, as a media guy, or let's say as a sales guy, it's always, okay, you know what? I'll close this and then I'm done. Or, okay, one more campaign, one more lead, one more phone call, one more podcast. It's always one more thing.
Yeah.
And actually, the thing is, what I realized throughout life, because of my ADHD and my ADD, and it's like I tend to be a procrastinator.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I need to sell myself the image the whole time, or sell myself the next step. So if I want to work out, if you tell me now, go and work out, I'll be like, oh no, I don't feel like it. So the way I do it, I'll be like, okay, you know what? I'll just put on my workout clothes, and then I'll be in the car. Okay. I'll drive to the gym and I'll park. I'll park, and then I'll walk in. If I don't feel, I just leave. And then once I start, it goes on. So we all have this kind of mechanism to keep ourselves either from not doing something or from doing something. What would that be for you?
I'm still struggling to answer this question because I'm resisting the temptation to connect it to the fact that I feel like such a faker all the time, right? Like I feel
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like I mean, and women talk about that all the time, and I'm sure men do too. Like I went to theater school, not business school, right? And here I am, 30 years later, running associations.
Wow.
Still, but
I'll tell you on one note, by the way, it's funny that because you're an artistic person, you see it, you went from not to business to art school, like to film school or to, let's say, acting school, not business. For me, I was a medical student and then I went to business school. So still, I feel like I'm kind of imposter or something,
Oh,
because
interesting.
there's always another level of thought, or maybe we're boxed sometimes on
Yeah.
something which people, they want us to be somewhere, but we want to be somewhere else.
Well, that's the thing, and maybe the great lie that I tell myself is that I have endless power and energy to do this work, and that is a weird thing to maybe admit in the middle of talking about thought leadership.
It's been working so far, and
Well,
that's
yeah, I mean, I'm, COVID. As I say, the leadership from the hardest hit sectors during COVID, those of us still standing, and we lost a lot of great leaders during COVID for sure. I mean, people just couldn't take it.
yeah.
But it's hard to. I refuse to give up and quit, but sometimes that feels like a lie. It's like, this is not good for me. It's not healthy. Some days it's stress or whatever it is. And my stubbornness and my A-type perfectionistic kind of brain won't let me ever stop and relax. But I need to relax. I need to, I have a dear friend who always says, put your own oxygen mask on first. And I'm very bad at that, but I tell myself I don't need it. And I do.
But I think you just answered another question, which is, was there ever a moment you wanted to walk away from it all?
Oh, good thing you didn't ask me this in the beginning, because we'd still be talking about it.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, I always joke that if I worked in the private sector, I could have retired 10 years ago for the amount of work that I've done.
Well, true. But
No, it is true.
would you be happy?
We haven't talked about my passion, my real passion, which is golf, right? I'm a huge golf nut. So,
No way.
which takes a lot of time, and whatever we if we have time, we can go there, because that is my favorite topic. But seriously, like this, I work for a tiny nonprofit, and I have done this as the third association I've run in my career.
Wow.
I don't do it for the money. You know what I mean? As much as I deeply value the paycheck that I work hard to earn, and I feel very privileged to earn that paycheck and grateful every day for this amazing job. But it's not for the faint of heart. And I also feel, and I think this is, I talk to a lot of women leaders about this. Like, I feel very alone and stranded sometimes. I have a great board, but my board are volunteers and they're very busy. And certainly during COVID, it was exceedingly hard for them to engage to the extent, every day, hard conversations and so on. So yeah, I mean, I just don't know what else I would do. And I guess I haven't found that thing other than play more golf.
I'll tell you that, by the way. I was watching a podcast, and then, because entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, and all that, there's always this question about, like, let's say, it was a question about what is rich, what is the definition of richness, or what is the definition of wealth. So if no matter what the amount of money you do doesn't change the outcome or the actions that you take, or the job that you do. Like, for example, I'll give it to you in your case, you just answered it. If more money doesn't change what you do, or less money doesn't change what you do, this is actually rich. You're really rich. Because otherwise, like, it means you're not doing it for the money. You're just doing it for the passion itself.
Yeah. Yeah, look, but there does come a moment when you get older and you're like, uh-oh.
What have I done?
Well, no, or how am I, like, how much longer am I working for another 20 years? Like, what does this look like, And it's sometimes hard when you look around and you're like, oh, you mean if I work for the government for this long, I'd have a pension? That's a reality.
And golf the whole time after that.
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you get to retire from jobs and still earn income. That is not the case in association leadership. Like, well, I'll speak for myself and lots of us in the Canadian arts community on the administration side. There's no safety net. There's no, I raise, with the support of my team, every penny that comes into the association to meet payroll. I have lost so much sleep over the concern around not being able to pay people, not being able to have enough money. Like, what if we don't get that grant? We can't do that work. Like, it is not for the weak or the meek, this job, because you just have to, it really is sales for me. Like, I need to be out there selling this idea about the value of live music. And if I still feel passionate about that, I can continue to do it. What drags me down is, the world drags me down a little bit right now. There's so much bad news and the geopolitical stuff is tough. But what drags me down is when our own industry, like there are some challenges within the live music industry itself, and they're legitimate and real and very important, and we work to address them. But I do feel extra tired when we don't get along ourselves. That's hard.
I think you're right, because sometimes, you're absolutely spot on this, because it's like for me, like let's say I can move mountains, I can work nonstop, but sometimes when I see that, as you said it, like the amount of bad things happening in the world, or the amount of things that's going on left and right, or sometimes let's say maybe you have a certain image about people or about things, and then they kind of deceive you, like, okay, really, like, are we doing that? Do we still do that?
Yeah. And it's, I am not judging anyone, any of our members or our industry who take issue with the way things work. I fully respect every opinion, and my job is to not have an opinion, but to bring people to the table to talk together about theirs. And that is, I think, my greatest skill, is to get people around a table, but it's hard. And because life is hard, and running a business is hard, and running a small business is really hard. And our systems are not set up to support a lot of that work. And so there's a lot of friction, and it's hard to move people through some moments. And I wish that I was better at that. And I hope I get better at that before I get replaced. Which could be any day now.
Oh, no. Let's hope not for that. What is a piece of advice that you ignored and you wish you hadn't?
Buy real estate.
Oh, yeah. We were just actually talking about that.
100%. I've owned houses and stuff over the years, but I've always sold them, and I've never hung on to them. That's a mistake. I tell my kids, if you can afford it, buy real estate. I don't care if it's like a little apartment building, a duplex,
whatever it is.
But that's not really related to my job. But sometimes this doesn't happen just once. The advice is, don't make a knee-jerk decision. Take some time to think about it. And I like to fix things as soon as they break, or they look like they're going to break. And it would be better if I just chilled out, took a beat, took a breath, calmed down, and thought about it. When I was in like kindergarten, my mom used to always tease me. I would get a note consistently on my report cards that says, Erin rushes. Why do I rush? I don't know. Actually, I think I do know. That's also another podcast. But
I think we should have I have two questions,
chapters.
Which is going to be for another set of conversations. But I totally can relate with you. Like for me, like my team, hats off for them, because really they struggle with me on that. It's like I always want my things yesterday.
Yeah.
It's for me. It's always like the time is so fast. We have to get moving, and we have to get things done. We live in a speed and an age of speed. The faster you try things, the faster you do it, the faster it can go right and wrong.
But also, I think for me, it's more like the faster I get something done, the sooner I can take it off the list, and the shorter my list gets. But my list never gets shorter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's always the case. The list never ends. Let's talk about, because you already also mentioned that. So basically, the CLMA's report says that live music contributes over 10 billion to GDP. So why doesn't it get the same respect as film or sports? Okay,
so that's the $365 million question, which is the budget of the Canada Media Fund.
Wow, that's
partly because we've not been good at telling our story, and that goes back to why we exist today. So the group of live music leaders that got together to found the Canadian Live Music Association were very frustrated by the absence of policy that incentivized their growth. So the things I've been repeating, all of the themes in our chat today, remain true. And that's our great opportunity. This is why we did that study, was to demonstrate. So it does say that we're a large industry. In fact, it says we're larger than fisheries and almost as big as automotive. If you get to the page 73 or whatever, It's very long. But the point of everything in this study is to say, we're doing this without policy intervention. We're doing this is how our industry works, without anybody saying, what happens if we tried to grow this sector? What does that look like? And that is the crux of our argument, that if you invest in live music activity, especially in the early rungs of the venue ladder in the smaller companies and organizations, and you're fostering and nurturing that grassroots growth, that you will see even more output. The pipeline will grow. It's good for Canadian artists. It's good for all of the companies who work in that space. The supply chain is endless. All of those things are true. So that's, that is the goal, to try to achieve that. And it's the study has been door opening, but just today I continue to work on our budget submission for the upcoming fall budget this year. It will happen in the fall. And that is the argument we're trying to make, that this industry is the reason we created this and paid for this study in the first place was to put numbers, to analyze the data, have concrete numbers, deliver them to government so they could have what we believe they need, which is statistics to make policy decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. On that, by the way, which is, a related question as well. So what is the number one thing that small venues right now need to survive in 2025?
Policy intervention.
So
hands down. I mean, look, we have small business tools for small businesses, but we don't have them for live music businesses. Right. We at a municipal and especially at a provincial level, we think about the needs of small business. We have banks that help businesses grow.
You're right.
Very hard for live music venues. We couldn't even get insurance during COVID. I mean,
wow.
We're just so grossly misunderstood and malaligned. And people have perceptions about live music activity. And we haven't been organized. So back to, why don't people understand us better? Why aren't we taken more seriously? We haven't been good at telling our story. And so now that is the focus of what we do today, is really amplify who we are and why we matter, obviously. But those small venues, I mean, if they were to go away, we would cease to be creating Canadian artists. I believe we would turn the tap off on the power and potential of the creation and the incubation of emerging artists in this country. We can still put content on the internet, right? You could still have TikTok sensations and all those things.
Always.
But if you have nowhere to play live,
that's it. You're done.
I mean, think about it. There's a number in our study. It's over 18,000 shows a year, which equates to almost 50 shows a day across Canada in 2023.
Wow.
50 concerts in Canada every day of every shape and size.
Wow.
Think about that. And the vast majority, the 1% or what everyone sees, or is the Taylor Swift stuff and the Coldplay stuff. That's the 1%.
Yeah.
It's the smaller stages and festivals that matter so much to the growth and sustainability of the ecosystem that and intersect with that data that really tell.
By the way, on this note, and tell me if it makes sense or not. It's kind of like those small venues are kind of like the places where the stand-up comedians they perform initially, because to be the stand-up comedian you have to perform in those small places.
100%.
You get the laughs, and then you get the.
It's
the
exactly the same. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
When I was an artist, I started in the smallest of small, like Say What in Toronto, the Free Times Cafe. I think it has a capacity of 40. I mean, those rooms were fundamental to my career development and ultimately led me to this very chair.
Wow.
And it's so they're not all growing up to be artists. We know this.
Yeah.
But that experience, of course, the industry and other industries are full of people for whom music was fundamental to their development, whether career development, personality, character, all the things. It is an incredibly it's a very important tool for humans and for those who try to do it professionally, no matter where it leads them. We need to create the opportunity for them to do that, because you never know what will happen when someone picks up an instrument and starts to perform.
Wow. Okay, 3 questions. I'll make them quick. So, if we ban government funding for live music tomorrow, what would survive?
Well, the big companies would survive, for sure, and some of the supply chain. For example, agents and managers who are managing those artists.
Maybe the big ones, maybe the ones that already they're
yes, but we would also lose a lot of the even larger nonprofit festivals, even though was relatively small percentage of their revenue would come from grants, that they're still reliant to a certain extent. I mean, I think we'd have a very generic one size, and concert ticket prices would go up and so on. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think we would lose a lot.
We'll turn it on a positive note. What advice would you give to a 20-year-old who wants to change the industry, who wants to, to change the music industry, not just join it?
For sure. And this is advice I would give to anyone, no matter what industry. Number one, this is like a life rule. So if I'll go up to the most interesting looking person in the room and strike up a conversation. Someone gave me that advice and it was fantastic. Like, so that's really about networking.
Always.
Yes. Just put yourself out there. And if you're an introvert, figure it out. It's okay to be introverted. You can still network.
Your network is your net worth. That was my
I love that. I love that. So true. It's so true. And then don't be an asshole. Like, do not be an asshole, because in an industry like mine, I am today working with the people. When I was an artist, one of wonderful guy who was a junior agent when I was working with an agency. He was at the company as a junior agent. He owns the company today.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a big one. So we knew each other way back when. And there's your communities, your people, whatever. But it's a small town. Canada's a small country. The music industry is an even smaller space. Be kind, be professional, and under no circumstances believe that you're better than anybody else.
100%. So if we want to talk about, let's say, in a sense of, there's like one thing which keeps coming to my mind. Think about, let's say, the live music festival. If you can imagine the live music festivals as a person, and it or he or she or no matter what's the noun that we want to put it into, they're sitting across of you, and you want to wrap up your career, and there's like a conversation you want, like what would be your last sentences to tell the industry?
Really? But I'm talking to a festival.
You're talking like it's the festival became a person, and they're sitting across of you.
Wow, what would be my last words? Gosh, you're right. I should probably know this because I'll need them one day. I don't know. I think it would probably be like, make sure that there's room for everybody and keep working on the diversity in this industry, because it is. We also released a study that we don't talk about as much anymore, but we should, called Closing the Gap, which is a look at Indigenous people of color and Black folks working in the music industry. And it's with a suite of recommendations for the sector. And that the DEI conversation in this country must never go away. The live music industry has a ton of work to do. And I apologize for only getting to it at this point in our conversation, because it is so important. And so if I was waving goodbye to the music industry, I would remind the folks who are left to continue to prioritize this, because as much as I talk about policy and funding and all the things that are priorities in my job, we can't succeed as a sector without perspectives and different voices. And
wow.
That is fundamental to our future. And the work has barely begun.
Wow, I got goosebumps. While you were talking, I got goosebumps. And my last question. So what's next for Erin Benjamin?
Well, I'm going to try out for the LPGA. That's a total joke.
Oh.
No, I mean, look, we have a long way to go. I mean, we've got a new government. It's a minority government. We are continuing to build relationships politically to make sure that basically it's more of the same. But this same it's hard work. It's heavy lifting, especially in fiscally challenging times. So I think what's immediately ahead of us is a federal budget where we will do our very best to make sure we don't get wiped off the map.
Nice.
And continue to have conversations that remind folks why what we do is so important to who they are and who they are becoming.
Perfect. Which brings us, to 2 points, to wrap up this conversation. The importance of thought leaderships and having leaders like you leading and, making things happen. And the second part would be every single company nowadays is a media company and it's a storytelling company. If we tell our stories, if we go above and beyond to tell people why do we do what we do and how do we do it most of the time, they're gonna believe, and they're gonna believe in our mission, our vision, and our drive, and they're gonna be joining eventually.
Yeah, and I think it demystifies leadership a bit. Like I often feel, hopefully, I'm the most approachable person on the planet. But I think sometimes, especially with
Well, you are.
with
You're extremely approachable person. So,
good,
a side note. So we met at a mayor's breakfast.
yeah,
I was like, like it was a quick conversation. We're having a podcast. You'd like to join? Yes, reach out to me. We did, and here we are.
here we are. But I think it's. Yeah, I think my thought was, young people sometimes feel intimidated or whatever. I mean, when we unpack this and we realize that we're all just people walking the same path for the most part, like with nuance, of course, different challenges and complexities, but ultimately hardworking, kind, good human beings. And we can sort of pull the covers back a little bit and shine that light inside. I hope it inspires other people. Like I started out as a 5-year-old with a dream of playing guitar. And it's not like I'm the king of the world here, but it is incredibly rich and fabulous to look back over 3 decades at this point and reflect on the impact you can have as a good,
100%.
kind person. And so, you know what? I talked about putting my own oxygen mask on because I never make time for myself. This was a really nice kind of moment in time for myself. So thank you.
Amazing. And thank you for that. I'll tell you like a funny story to wrap up on it because, you mentioned that, when you were young, your dream was to, your mom bought you a guitar. For me, actually, it's very funny how, we sometimes have same experiences, but, different outcomes. My parents did try to push us to music.
Really?
They bought me a guitar. Didn't work out. They bought me drums. Didn't work out.
You're like, no, I'm going to med school. Stop trying to make me a musician.
So they're trying to make me, artistic, and I think I enjoy and I appreciate, music and art. But I'm a person who, like as you're saying, like I can see the opportunities of, like let's say when we're having this conversation. Oh wow, there's this industry which can drive amazing economies and amazing opportunities, but there's people like you who are actually driving the passion in this. And I really praise this kind of motive, and I wish you the best of luck on the next phases and on the golfs as well.
I need luck on both. So
100%. And thank you for a really, really impressive conversation. That was really like a food for thoughts. And I'm really looking forward for hopefully next time there's some topics which we're gonna also cover.
I'd be happy to come back and chat.
And thank you for that.
Thank you.